Okay, here we have a custom wine cooling unit pulled out of a house today, and they're complaining that it's making noise and it's not cooling. So I was in the process here of putting a line tap valve on here so I can get into the sealed system and check the pressure. My suspicion is that it has a freon leak. And if you look at the way this thing is built, the condensate, the water from the evaporator, I don't feel any oil on here, but it comes down into this tube right here. See that? And you can see all the rust in here. So the water accumulates down here, and then the discharge line, which creates heat, as it comes out of the compressor, it comes down and it goes into this what I want to call a heater loop. So it comes in and it goes out, and this creates heat, and that heat is what evaporates the water, which is in here. And so if we have a leak, it's probably down here where all this moisture is, because I'm looking around and I don't see any oil or any other places where it could be leaking, but we'll check that. We'll see if the evaporator is leaking or not. So that's the test right now, is to find out where the leak is. But first, I'm going to put a valve on here and check the pressure. By the way, this is an R12 unit. It says R12 on here, and it's an Embraco compressor, an FF10. Looks like an 8 to me from here. It's probably 10,000 BTUs. So we'll check it out. Okay, so now we've hooked up a gauge, a low side gauge. I'm going to open this up, see what kind of pressure we have in there. There's no pressure. That's probably why it wasn't working. Let's see if we can plug it in, and if it pulls down to a vacuum. Yeah, it's pulling down. Condenser fan motor isn't turning properly. May have to change that. Alright, so here's the problem. We have a freon leak. We have a bad condenser fan motor. My guess is the leak is in the high side. We'll do a leak search, and then maybe we can oil this motor and get it going again, or we might have to change it. We'll be back. Okay, so last night we pressurized this system with R12 up to 40 pounds PSI. Came in this morning, it was down to 10. So we're assuming that there's a leak. Most likely there's a leak. And we'll use our, this is our ultrasound leak detector. And we're going to check for leaks. I thought that maybe the most likely place for a leak to be was down here where all this moisture and water is. But I'm not picking up anything there. And first of all, let me put some more pressure. Okay, so we're at 30. And I'm picking up something here. Nothing here. As soon as I get up to here, right there. I feel like something coming out of there. So let's get some soap bubbles and see if we can pinpoint it. Okay, so I put those soap bubbles on here, and you can see these little bubbles right there. See that? That's where the leak is. Probably because the evaporator was rubbing up against the side cover over time, it wore away the tubing here. But that's going to be an easy fix. I can just sand that down and solder it. Pretty good. All right. Good show. So we'll do that. And then also, we're going to remove this condenser fan motor because the bearing's really tight and it's not turning fast enough to do anything. So we'll take that out and try to oil it and get that up and running. The other complaint the customer had was that the compressor was making noise. I don't see anything wrong with the motor mounts, so there could be something internally wrong, like maybe a broken spring or something inside, in which case the only way to fix that would be to replace the compressor. Okay, so let's fix the leak first. In order to take this condenser fan motor out, we're going to have to take the blade off, and there's a little hex head key there, key slot. We'll get a hex head key, loosen that up, pull off the blade, and then pull the motor out, and then we'll see if we can oil it. Okay, so we had to wind up taking the motor off the bracket because we couldn't get it out of that slot. So the next thing we're going to do here is try to loosen up this bearing in here. I mean, it's just as easy to change the motor, but I don't have the motor. I have to go get it. I'm trying to save time. There. That's much better. Okay. I think we salvaged this motor. All right, so we'll clean up this area a little bit here, get some of this rust out of here, and then while we have it apart, we'll put a new filter dryer in and also cut this line tab valve off and put a process port on there, and then of course we'll fix the leak, and then we should be done. Okay, so here we put some braze. We brazed this leak here, and we also put a new filter dryer on here, and we also sweat on a process port. So next thing to do is we'll pressurize it, check it for leaks, and then we'll put the vacuum pump on it for a while and dry out the system. Okay, so we fixed the leak, changed the dryer, put on the process port, we pressurized the system, didn't find any leaks. The condenser fan motor is working now after we oiled it, and all we need to do is charge it up, see if it's going to work. Let's see what kind of pressure we have in there. We got 20 pounds, 20 inches in vacuum here. That's not good. Actually, it should be at least 25. Compressor is making a little noise inside. And one of the other problems with this unit is I found out it was about 35 years old. And according to the specs on the plate, it's a 1/4 horsepower compressor, and it says the refrigerant is RX-56, 10.5 ounces. Now, I've been in the business for 55 years, and I've never heard of RX-56. So I called the manufacturer, or at least the distributor, and he told me how old the unit was, and they didn't make them anymore. The company went out of business 20 years ago. So the compressor says it's an R12. So I'm going to attempt to put some R12 in here. Right now I'm just pulling all the air out, and I put a vacuum pump on it for an hour, a couple hours, and then I'm going to throw some freon in here and see if that helps. So we will be back. Okay, here's the update on this unit. The compressor is damaged inside. One of the supporting springs has broken, and the noise is coming from inside the compressor. So we have no other choice but to remove it and replace it. So I talked to the customer. They want to go ahead and fix it, even though this unit's about 35 years old. It's kind of a special size, and we've already fixed the leak and did all the other sealed system work. So now we're going to remove the compressor and put another compressor in there. Okay, so we replaced the compressor on here, and there's the old one over here. It's got a broken spring or something in there. You can hear that. It's hitting right up against the housing. Anyway, this compressor here is now pulling down to almost, I'd say maybe a 29-inch. It's past 30, but it's obviously impossible to get a 30-inch vacuum. But it's probably close to 29, maybe 29 and a half. So that's telling me that we have a really good, strong compressor in there, as opposed to the old one, which was only pulling down to about 20 inches of mercury. So I'm going to let this run for a while. We're doing a sweep charge on this right now. We have the high side open, and using the compressor to suck out any air or moisture in there. And then we're going to charge it up. Now, according to the label, this takes 10.5 ounces. But I'm going to do a slow charge on it. I'm going to charge it up and use superheat settings. Another way you can do it, if you don't have the proper equipment, is you can check your suction line and make sure it's not frosting back, so you have too much gas in there. But the reason why they have all this insulation around here is because it sweats. You can see by all the rust. But just remember, this unit's 35 years old, and so we did whatever we could to salvage it and get some more life out of it. Okay, we'll get back to you. Let's charge it up, and we'll get back to you. Okay, we are just about finished with this unit, and it's up and running, and everything looks good. So to recap what we did, and let me reiterate that this is a custom wine cellar that someone built, and they just cut a hole in the wall and slid this unit in, and that's how it worked all these years. And this unit's about 35 years old. So we fixed a freon leak right here. We just put some brazing rod over that, cleaned it up and fixed that leak. We changed the compressor. We took the fan motor out because it was the bearing was really tight and the fan wasn't running. We fixed that, and we charged it up with 10.5 ounces of R12. That's it. This thing is up and running. We're going to just put the cabinet back together and then deliver it to the customer. So thanks for watching.